G'day legends, I hope you're all amazing. On today's video, I want to show you how I built my live preset on the Fractal AM4 from scratch. I'm hoping as I go through all the details of this preset, you'll be able to pick up some handy tips and tricks. So let's start out with AM4 Edit. I've got my Chilier Bella Aurora plugged straight into the AM4. I'm taking the digital out of the AM4 straight into my DAW. There's no post-processing on the guitars. And we're going to begin by dragging and dropping an amp block onto the grid. So I want to go over to the type and select my favorite high gain amp in here, which is this FAS Stealth Blue model. All of the FAS models essentially are Fractal's take on idealized real-world amplifiers, and I think the FAS Stealth Blue sounds amazing. Let's first hear it at the stock amp and cab settings. One unique feature of the AM4 compared to other Fractal products is that the amp and the cab are incorporated into a unified block. So the cab that is the stock choice is this 4x12 recto straight, and just stock amp settings on here. It's pretty chunky. Thing that I'm going to do is change the cab on there. This is going to make a massive difference in the overall tone. We'll come down here and we'll select user cab instead of dyna cab. And I've got my free IR loaded into user cab slot number 1. If you download the IR and want to try it for yourself, you come up to tools, go to manage cabs, then you're going to get that wave file and drag it and drop it, not straight onto these numbers, drag it and drop it over here on the left in the browser. That will convert it to the SYX file format. Then you can drag and drop that wherever you like it over here. Just make sure you point it to the relevant number. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a low cut and a high cut over here. My starting point generally these days is a low cut of 80 Hertz and a high cut of 6500 Hertz. I will take that high cut as low as 5 kilohertz in certain live situations. Let's hear that now. I haven't touched the amp. All right, two things that I immediately do with this amp model is I like to turn the master volume down. This is going to keep everything a lot tighter and chunkier sounding. And on the Stealth Blue and the other 5150 Stealth models, I find you really have to crank the presence control. So I will take that to 9.5. Now, because I've turned the amp block master volume down, I'm going to compensate by turning the amp block level up. Now, I generally like to refine this a little bit. I'll turn the gain down and I'll just play around with the EQ and the depth control on there. Something like this as a starting point is pretty cool. Let's hear that, and then we'll just go into Expert Edit and make a few extra little fairy dust tweaks on there. That's sounding pretty bunter already. Two advanced tweaks that I like to make, and they're pretty straightforward. The first one is using the amp block preamp boost. I really like this CC boost mode in here. Just giving it about 6 dB of gain on there. We'll have a listen to the difference with the CC boost off and on. This is going to add some sizzle. It's going to make the low end even tighter, which is good because I'm in a drop tuning. And for the band that I play in, I find I really need that extra high-end sizzle to compete with distorted bass guitar and a really loud drummer. other advanced tweak that I like to do, which changes the feel of the amp block, probably more than any other advanced parameter, is in the speaker tab, and it's playing around with the speaker impedance curve. The default mode on here is the 4x12 5153, which I think is a great choice, but I really like the Loadbox LB2 UK impedance curve or the 4x12 recto straight. The recto straight is super, super chunky on there. So I can pin this up here and just play around with a couple of different choices. So we'll start off, where are we? 4x12 5153. We'll hear the load box and then we'll hear the recto straight. Stoked with that in the amp block, and I'm going to use that for my main rhythm scene over there. We'll set the scenes up in a little bit, but I do just want to dial in a couple of other amp block tones using the channels feature. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy channel A. I'll actually copy both the amp and the cab settings. So we're going from A over to channel B. Then on channel B, I'm going to set this one up with some more gain, some more mid-range. I am going to use a different preamp boost in here. We'll use the shred boost, and I'm going to use the built-in amp block output boost on here. So you can see this in the extras tab. You can set up to a 4 dB boost in your amp block. I'm just going to go with the stock 3 dB over there. That way, if I change from channel A to channel B, I've got the same core amp and cab tone on there, but I've got more gain and saturation and mid-range and more volume, so my solos can stick out over there. And this switches gaplessly between these two. So we'll have a listen to channel A and then channel B. It's like channel A is absolutely gloriously filthy and chunky, and channel B is just that, but more so. All the help that I can get when I'm playing guitar solos live. So that is absolutely going to do the trick for me as a lead scene. Let's add some effects to all of this now. And on the AM4, I like that I can strip this down to the bare essentials that I would use when I'm playing live. So we'll go to quick build and add a few things. I really like having a wah. I really like having a delay. And if I'm playing in stereo, I like some kind of stereo widening effect. We could try the enhancer, or we could use something like a chorus block. I'm going to go for the chorus block today over here. We'll just start by bypassing these. And we'll come over to the wah block because I want to show you how to attach an expression pedal to the wah that can auto-engage. You see this little yellow circle on here. This means you can attach a modifier to this parameter. So in AM4 Edit, we're going to right-click that, and we will set the source to where we've got our external controller. It happens to be pedal jack number 1 for me. I've got a Fractal EV1 at my feet. If I sweep the pedal, you can see that it's moving up and down this range over here. Now, I'm going to put auto engage on so that it kicks in with a medium speed. If I leave the off value at 5%, that means when I'm in the heel down mode, the wah is going to be bypassed. As I press forwards, it is going to engage the wah automatically on there. And this is great if you're used to using, say, a Morley style wah, or you've got a spring-loaded expression pedal that's always going to kick back to the heel down mode. I'm used to a Crybaby where you would have a little toe switch on there. So I'm going to turn this up to 95%. So when I'm in the toe down mode, the wah is bypassed. As I kick back and do that, it will bring the wah in. So this is an awesome sounding wah block in here. I like the Crybaby model. I just like turning the maximum frequency down to around 1400 Hertz over here, add a little bit of extra level back in, and you get this. That's killer. I love the way that wah sounds. It's the ultimate cheat code for playing distorted rock guitar solos. If I am playing in stereo, I want some stereo width on here. Now, there's no pitch block in the AM4, so I can't use the dual detune. But what I have found is the Dimension Chorus is a great fill-in for that. So if you've got my blocks library, you can use this library function down here and bring in this Boss DC2 Mode 3. I think bringing the mix down to around 30% works really well. You can see the rate and the depth. There are some advanced tweaks that I've done to this to match it to a real-world Boss dimension, but this adds so much width and girth to the tone. That is so awesome. I like two main delays as well. I love having a big greasy stereo lead delay, and I think this new surround delay type does that so well. Just drop the feedback down a little bit and you can bring the mix up if you like. I like adding a bit of a high cut in here as well so that the delays don't have as much high frequency content in them. That way they don't clash as much against your main lead sound, especially if you're like me and you like to play a lot of notes. Let's check this out. That combined with all the extra gain and saturation from channel B that I dialed in, and of course the extra grease from the Dimension Chorus, that keeps me happy live. I absolutely love the way that sounds. Now, I will normally tempo sync all of my delays. So I'm going to set this one as a quarter note delay on there. I think it sounds great at the stock settings over there. On channel B, I am going to use a different delay type though for a rhythmic style sound over here. I think the vintage digital works great for this. The stereo mind guy works great for this. It just kind of depends on the mood that I'm in. But let's use the vintage digital delay in here. One thing that I love about this is in Expert Edit, you can choose the amount of bit reduction over here. So you can get it to sound really, really crusty like an old rack delay. I generally go for about 8 bits of reduction over there. And if we go back here, I want this as a dotted 8th note delay, basically the mix at 50%, and the overall feedback can stay where it is. Let's go back to channel A on here. So the sound is still very saturated, just not as saturated as my lead scene. And what I can do here, because it's tempo synced, is I'll set the tempo to 135 BPM. I seem to write a lot of songs at this particular tempo. I can tap it in on the unit, of course, if I want. Then to round things out, what I'll do is I'll add a faster chorus in channel B of the chorus blocks. I'm using the Japan CE2, higher rate, lower depth on there for a kind of rotary style sound. last tweak that I will make is I will tweak the input gate over here. Let's go to expert edit so I get all the parameters. With this guitar, I find the threshold at -55 is a good starting point. We'll set the ratio to 4 and we'll set the release to 20 milliseconds on here. This will keep everything pretty tight, especially when I'm playing at high volume over here. Give me back my dimension mode, leave that on, and give me the main rhythm sound, and I'm pretty good to go. We can now organize this into scenes. So I'll call scene 1 chunk, and this is just going to be my amp and cab tone with a bit of that spread from the dimension chorus. I'm going to go to scene 2 and we'll use amp channel B. Remember, that is more gain, more saturation, more volume. We'll leave the chorus where it is and we'll have this surround delay on over here. Scene 3, I want to go back to channel A on the amp block. And in this case, I want to use that vintage digital delay that I dialed in for a rhythmic sound. So this one I can call rhythmic. I should probably name my lead scene as well while I'm going. We'll call the lead scene very, very imaginatively lead. And then for the 4th scene, sometimes I'll use an extra channel in the amp block for a clean sound. In this case, I'm going to keep my surround delay on and we'll use channel B in the chorus for a real wobbly kind of sound. I use this in a couple of songs from our last album. So that's my wobble scene. Fairly straightforward. I can add a wah to all of this. I've spent like 20 minutes dialing in all of this and explaining it while I go, but the way I would set this up from scratch is I would just use the blocks library. All of those effect sounds are already in there. Maybe at the end of the video, I'll show you how quick that is in real time. But for now, I'll just play you out with a couple of these sounds on here. I'm gonna go to scenes mode on my AM4 and just switch through them. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Again, if you want the free IR, it's linked in the video description. The blocks library, the music, all the other stuff is linked in there. Thanks so much for watching the video. And even if you don't like giant chungus guitar tones, I really hope that you learnt something through here when it comes to dialing in tones on your new AM4. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Did say earlier I would show you how to do this with the blocks library, so let's do a speed run using my blocks library. If you have gone and grabbed the blocks library, thank you so much. I massively appreciate it. I'll just leave this at the end of the video. So let's do it. We'll add our effects blocks in here. Let's start with the wah, then we've got the amp, the chorus, and the delay over here. What I'm going to do is just populate each of these blocks with the effects. So from the library, we'll use the LT wah. This already has the pedal assigned to it in there. The amp channels, I'm going to use the Ragdoll FAS settings over here. Now in the cab block, you'll see that this is still using the user cab over here. Just make sure you've got this user cab loaded into cab slot number 1. Channel B, I was using basically the same settings, right? And I'm just going to go over to the amp and I will turn up the gain. I'll turn up the mid-range on here. I'll turn the output boost on. That's my amp block sorted. The chorus block, I was using Boss DC2 mode 1 on channel A, and I was using this, what was it? The RE501 chorus, if you want those chorus settings over there. Just turn the mix down over here. And then the delay over here, we're going to use LT surround. And for channel B, we're going to come in here and we're going to use this Korg SDD 3000 setting. You can play around with the mix and the feedback on there. Then I can just arrange that into scenes really quickly. I will leave that as an exercise to the viewer. Again, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed the greasy tones, and I'll see you on the next one.